Hello crafty friends! Today I am going to be sharing with you how I created this adorable tag using the Santoro London Gorgeous Girls. And this stamp is one of the sets from the minis. I actually have the first two and I absolutely love them, but I haven't really been using it as much as I should. Now this one is called Forget Me Not and is number 4 on the collection. I am using a tag that I punched out using a Fisker sponge from a Bristol Smooth, not a Bristol Smooth, I'm sorry, a Canson watercolor paper. And I am using my VersaFine ink to stamp it. I am also going to be stamping it onto this sticky note because I am going to be doing some masking later on. I was planning on cutting it, but I decided to wait for that to dry to do that. Now, moving on to color it, I am going to be using my Koi watercolor palette. And this palette, I actually got it for Christmas. It was gifted to me and I absolutely love playing with. Now I know it is a little bit of work in progress trying to learn to mix colors, but I'm just kind of, trying to make my own thing. To create a skin tone, I actually mixed a little bit of this mustard yellow with a brown color. It actually turned out pretty good. So, it just depends on how much of the pigments you add. I am not an expert and I actually do have to, look into that a little bit more. I want to take a class from Sandy Alnock so I can see about mixing colors and, see what would work best. But for now, I am just, taking it as it is and trying to make it work. Now to create a little bit of the shading, I am going and dabbing the water brush onto the actual brown to give that a little bit of shading. When I went a little bit, thought that it was a little bit more and it was looking a little bit streaky, I just go over the whole face and it just kind of fixes the problem. I do have a paper towel on my left side so that way I can, clean my brush and dab it off so I don't contaminate the other colors. But for her dress, I was just mixing some of this blue with a green that kind of looks like an emerald green. So it gave it this really pretty tealish, greenish blue color. I don't know the name of it, but it looked very pretty. Now, when I am putting the color, there is spots that the brush starts pulling water, and I just go back and dry it off because I don't want my paper to get too wet. So another good thing that you could do is, grab your paper towel and dab it off. So that you will see here that it happens a little. My brush was actually getting a little too dry, so when I picked up the pigment, it actually put too much in the dress, and even though it dries a little bit lighter when when it dries, I didn't want it to be that dark, so I decided to just kind of go ahead and dab it off with the paper towel. You see I can put a little bit more, but then that's the kind of the definition that I wanted. I just wanted it to be a little bit slightly darker up on the top right side of her dress. Now moving on to her trim, I am just using this yellow again, and I'm putting a little bit of the white on top because I want it to look kind of like a cream color. I don't know if that really worked, but it worked fine rather than just mixing the colors. The coloring Mr. Bear, I am using the regular brown, and because when you grab just a tiny bit of the pigment and spread it around with the water brush, it kind of mixes the color. I wanted to add a little bit of texture, so I picked up a little bit more of that brown and just kind of let it pool there and dry a little bit while I worked on other areas of the, of the little girl. So for her bow, I decided to go with the red, and then for her hair, I mixed a little bit more of that brown and yellow, but then I decided to add a little bit of a darker brown, which is almost black, but it's not quite black. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, so for her color, for her dress, I am just adding it on. I'm sorry, not her dress, her hair. I'm adding it on, just kind of spreading it onto the whole thing. Just being very careful on those little strands. I'm not trying to make it look so defined because the watercolor kind of, it is a little bit see-through. You can still see the detail from the stamp on the hair. And I have it on the right hand side for reference just a little bit so you can see where the darker areas will go. But again, I'm not really worried about it because it is such a tiny stamp that it's not really going to matter. Now, trying to work on different sections of the image, now I moved on to her little socks, and I am just adding a little bit of that mustardy yellow again onto the lighter colors and then the darker brown onto the others. And I did the same thing onto her gloves. So I started with that darker brown and then went over one time, and when you go over on the neck on the other side, you can start seeing it a little bit more. So I decided to go back again on the left side so I can make it look even. Now moving on, by this time her hair is dry and I can color the bows that she is wearing. So for these ones, I also decided to make them red so they can kind of match a little bit with her dress, and also gave that little bear a red bow. Now once this was over, I just went over again and used a little bit of that yellowy mustard for the white part of her gloves to just kind of add a little bit of color there. And those, let me tell you, those areas were very, very difficult because they're so tiny. But, this brush worked just fine. Now, to give a little bit of color to her cheeks, I used some of that red because I don't have any, like, pink color. And I am just dabbing a little bit of color. Now, that little bit wasn't really looking too much, so I decided to add more. And then just kind of, dab it off with my napkin. And you can kind of see it. But, it was giving me this harsh line around the little puddles that I was putting, so I decided to grab a little bit more of that brown and spread it all around, and that seemed to fix the problem. Now moving on to trimming the other stamp that I stamped onto the little sticky note. I am just cutting it all around so that way I can use it as a mask and put it on top of this little girl. And we're going to be doing some stenciling, which actually was a lot of fun. These stencil that I am going to be putting, you can see me here first, I'm very fussy. Sometimes I want to go into each little detail of her little hair strands, which sometimes doesn't really matter. But anyway, going back to the stencil, this stencil, I actually had it in my stash for quite some time and I never used it before. So I like that it has a lot of different little patterns that you can use, and the size was perfect for this tag. I also pulled out a glitter paste that I got from Bo Bunny, and I think I purchased this at Blitzy a while ago. And again, it was still brand new. I never even used it, so I decided to go ahead and use it this time. So I'm just trying to figure out the placement. Once I did, I just went to town and started spreading some of that glitter onto the stencil. And I'm using this little inexpensive palette knife that I had purchased, I think, at Michael's, and just kind of spreading it all around and making sure that I'm not using too much or leaving a lot of mess on the stencil itself. Now, when I took it off, I decided that just having it on the top wasn't going to be enough, so I wanted to cover a little bit more, and I put the stencil back on, but I just kind of offset it a little bit and held the top because I didn't want it to mess up the stenciling that I had already done. So I just kind of did the same on both. I'm just not being too careful. I don't want it to be in the whole section. And it turned out to be really good, actually. So I have another piece of those because I didn't want the glitter paste to go onto my mat. And then I just, mix it back in, put it away. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that you clean your stencil and your tools right away, because the glitter paste does dry very fast, and it would, kind of stay stuck to your stencil, and you don't want to ruin them. So here you can already see I peeled it off and it's already looking so cute. So while I waited for it to dry, I went over to the sink and washed my stencil off. Just kind of used a little bit of soap and warm water to clean it off and make sure that it was all gone. I also punched out another tag using my Fiskars punch, and this one actually has a little eyelet setter in the punch for it, so I decided to go ahead and punch both of them so that way they could have the punch already, because I don't know how thick you can put the paper, so I decided to do them each individually. Here I am using my Simon Says tacky glue to put all over this tag because I am going to be sandwiching them together. Putting it on the back to just kind of give a little bit of extra support. Even though the watercolor paper is, heavier than normal cardstock weight, giving a second layer of it, it actually makes it really sturdy and it looks, a lot nicer. I also left it because I like the texture of the watercolor on that side to show, so I thought it would give a little nice detail to the back of it. Once I was sure that everything was glued together and it looked nice, I decided to pull out one of my dies, and I pulled this little tiny word love. It's from a set that I got from Recollections at Michael's, and it has a lot of different little words like this, like friendship, I believe, love, hugs, live. It has just a bunch of little words that is very, very cute. And I am using my Zig two-way glue pen to add a little bit of the adhesive here because I am going to be stacking them. So I cut out 2 red and 2 black. So I am stacking the 2, and then the total is going to be 4, but I am staggering the black and the red just a little bit so I can give a little bit of that shadowy effect to the word. And once I stack both of them, I use the same pen, but to glue them onto my tag, I decided to use my tumble glue. For this one, I decided to use that one because I figured that it was going to be a lot better than using just a regular Zig because of the glitter paste that was already on the tag. So there we are, putting them all together. I'm sorry about that. Sorry about my voice again, guys. I am still trying to get off this cold, so I still sound a little stuffy, but promise you, I feel a lot better than I sound. So anyway, I decided to put the word up here on top by her head and, just kind of layered it off. And I thought it was already looking so, so cute. The reason why I chose red there is because I wanted to tie together the red from her bows. And to finish it off or add a little bit more shimmer, I pulled out my Winkle Stella, added it to the word love, and that almost finishes off my tag. But I also went and got from my stash, I have quite a few of these thin ribbons, and this one is red that has this gold trim around it, and that just completed my tag. I hope that you guys really enjoy this video, and if you have old stamps, give it a try. But anyway, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.